right, here we go. Welcome in, baseball fans. Good evening. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. And it is trade deadline time, which means I am jumping out of my skin. It is Christmas in July, at least for me. That's the way I feel about these things. I get hyped up about baseball moves, Dalton. I almost get more excited about the baseball offseason than I do about the actual season itself. I am one of those silly people because I like moves on paper. I don't like when they actually play on the field. That's lame. So, but how we doing, my friend? How we doing just before deadline day?
Well, I am certainly anxious about the trade deadline. It's one of the most fun weeks of the year to just watch all the transactions come through and, think about how much the league can change in a few days. It's something that we see every year, and it really is a fun time. I'm going to push back on this claim that the offseason is even more fun than the season. I don't think you'll feel that way. If I approach you in January and I say, hey, do you want baseball or do you want a transaction? You're going to want baseball. So I'd push back on that a little bit, but certainly an exciting time. I'm obviously hoping that the Dodgers do more than they've done so far. I'm guessing you feel the same about the Yankees.
Yeah.
We'll get to every single team in baseball on today's show. We're going to go team by team through all 30, talk a little bit about what their approach has been so far, what our takes are on it, what we think might still be left in the tank. And, and then obviously we got our bread and butter. We'll talk a little Dodgers and Yankees and go from there. But, man, it's an exciting time, nerve-wracking time. Deadline, by the way, is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I do recognize that not all of our audience is necessarily on Eastern time. That's 1 p.m. Pacific for those of you out west who don't get acknowledged enough.
Yeah, see, you're a West Coast kid, you see. You're used to not being acknowledged enough with your own time zone. I can respect that. So, but yes, you're right. Plenty of stuff to go over today. We will be going through all 30 teams, see what we think they could do, and kind of review what they have done so far during the deadline period. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. But coming up first, obviously, and again, this show is going to be a little bit different. There is no 1, 2, 3 inning this show. We're doing this in a much different fashion based on the occasion. But one thing remains the same. We cater to our own fan bases, Yankees, Dodgers, even though he's donning a Cubs hat today. We cater to our own fan bases. Sorry, not sorry. Let's start with this. Okay, so I think this is the first few days in a long time, Dalton Brown, that I don't want to jump off the nearest bridge. I'm actually feeling pretty good after the last 2 days, right? Now, I understand and I try to be sort of objective in a lot of these things when it comes to me being a fan, because I feel like I know the game well enough to not, overreact to certain things, but it's hard. It's hard sometimes. Okay. The last month and a half for the Yankees have been an absolute disaster. And I still think that there is a deep-rooted organizational issue with how they develop players, because I don't think it's just like a bad crop. There is something going on in that respect. But listen, last night's game and the game before that, where you came back in extras, Trent Grisham down to his final strike, takes Kenley Jansen off the monster. You tie the game, you then score 3 runs in the 10th. Like, this is the kind of fight back that we haven't seen from the Yankees since they were red hot to start the year. And now what you see here is you might be hitting your stride at the right time, right? You're winning in Philadelphia right now, and Philly has been struggling in their own right as of late, but to some extent, you kind of look at it like, okay, you take a series in Boston. Now let's see if you take a series in Philadelphia. Okay, the tide kind of starts to turn if stuff starts to come back. I don't think the Yankees are done. I don't think that Jazz Chisholm is the only guy that they'll end up acquiring. I still think they're going to acquire a bullpen arm or two. I still think that they're out there for a bat. Like I said, I would love to see Yandy Diaz in this lineup and have him play third base. But I would love to see that. I don't know how likely that is, but I can dream. It's these sorts of things that kind of make you say, okay, things aren't all so awful. And Dalton, like you said, and this is where my rant's really going to end here, is I'm going to give you kind of your flowers on this. When you said, the Yankees aren't as good as they were to start the year, but they also aren't this bad. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I think we could be sort of progressing towards where they actually are as a team as the summer progresses. And then after the trade deadline, we can kind of reevaluate where they are. But I expect right now that they'll be a better team than they are by, within the next 24 hours, we will see a better New York Yankee team that is simply playing better than what we've seen the last month and a half.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of what makes this time exciting. If you're rooting for a team that is any kind of contender, you are, you're sitting there with the hope that, hey, my baseball team is going to be better tomorrow than it is today. And that's not something that you can say every day all year. So, that's definitely a special part of it. And look, as far as the Yankees are concerned, tonight in Philly definitely so far seems like it's another really positive step for them. Look, I mean, Chisholm is a guy who that acquisition is one that feels like it can go one of two ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it can either be a disaster because there are some reputational questions with him regarding work ethic, regarding clubhouse culture and all that. Or it could be something where he shows up and is reinvigorated by the fact that now he's in the Bronx and he's competing for a pennant, and that kind of gets him moving in the right direction. Early returns are really damn positive. So, already with a homer tonight, it seems like he's really engaged with that clubhouse. And so look, that's the type of thing that, if you hit on it, that's a huge get, right? And like you said, they're probably not done. So, relatively good vibes in the Bronx. As far as the Dodgers, look, I talked about this last week being hate week on last week's show. You're playing the Giants for 4 games. They take 3 out of 4 there, and that's great. What really chaps my ass is that the Dodgers should have taken 2 out of 3 in Houston as well. And then you're really building something coming out of the break. Because if you look at what the Dodgers have done coming out of the All-Star break, you sweep the Red Sox. That was a Red Sox team that was playing really well. You sweep them at home. You take care of business time and time again against San Francisco. Now, look, you go into Houston Friday night, Framber Valdez deals, you lose 5-0. It is what it is, right? I can live with that. But when you're taking a 5-0 lead into the 6th inning on Saturday, and you've got a rookie in River Ryan, who I understand that you want to hold his pitch count around 90 pitches, but he's cruising, and you're pulling him with 2 outs in that inning with a runner on. Like, if you are not going to let him finish that inning, do not let him start that inning. It's just sloppy. The whole thing is sloppy. There's no look, I get it. You want to keep him around 90, but hey, if you're putting him out there to start an inning and he's already around 80 pitches, guess what? Now you're willing to let him go to about 100, because at that point in the ball game, you're in control. He's pitching well. He's in control. You're up 3-0. There's there's just no reason there that you're going to Vesia to face Yainer Diaz. And Vesia, look, he's had a great season, but I don't know of a Dodger fan in the world that really trusts what we're seeing out of him. He throws almost exclusively fastballs and just relies on throwing them by people, even though he throws mid-90s. And I get it. It's got some good life to it, but that's not going to play in the postseason. And I think, sometimes we've got to be willing to read the game in front of us. And it's something that Roberts just can't do. And it's going to hurt this team in the postseason, like it does every other postseason. I think that's why I was so pissed on Saturdays, because I feel like I'm watching what I know is going to happen in big spots in the postseason, which is this manager is going to clam up and make nonsensical decisions, and the team is going to fold. And so it's why I have a sense of existential dread about the Dodgers. But look, all in all, 4-3 week when your roster's this beat up. I mean, we didn't have Freddie Freeman in Houston. You don't have Max Muncy in Houston. You don't have Mookie Betts in Houston. We had Gavin Lux in the 3-hole all 3 games in that series. So the fact that the Dodgers were in a position to potentially take 2 out of 3 down there, you feel good about that. But you also feel like you should have taken those 2 out of 3. So, really frustrating, but it is what it is. This is a huge 2 games coming up the next 2 nights in San Diego. This Padres team is a lot closer on our tails than I think a lot of Dodger fans want to admit.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I think that if you are new to the show, if you weren't listening before, now is the time to, because now is the time where Dalton is going to start to lose his shit on Dave Roberts, and it's going to get incredibly entertaining for the rest of the year.
I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it, and you're going to hear me say it time and time again. He is the worst in-game manager in baseball, bar none. Bar none. Wow. And I feel comfortable saying that in part because the stakes are too high for him to be as bad at his job as he is. And look, Dave Roberts is a wonderful human being. Wonderful human being. He manages the personalities in that clubhouse exceptionally well. He's well liked. I'm not saying that there isn't value to those things, but he's been at the helm for 8 years now. The Dodgers have one World Series that, look, it deserves full credit as a World Series. It's one that everybody in the world was fighting for just as much as we were.
Yep.
But let's be real, right? Not having crowds is something that I think worked to the Dodgers' advantage. I think it put us in a position where we couldn't clam up quite as much. And even so, Roberts was giving up games in the NLCS in that series and almost blew it for us in that one as well.
Yep.
So look, you'll notice when I talk about the Dodgers, all of my positive things that I have to say are about how good of a regular season team we are. When you and I sit down for a show on October 4th or 5th and we're going into the NLDS, you're going to hear a little bit of a different tune from me. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I really do. I look forward to the day where you just where you come in here completely off kilter and just blow your hat off your head when you with Dave Roberts. And listen, Dalton, you're my friend. I hope that the Dodgers do well, but I also hope for an entertaining show. And I think if Dave Roberts blows a game, it could be entertaining for our listeners. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you might get exactly what you want.
Oh man. Okay. So that's it for the race. So before we start getting into every team and what we think that they could be doing, let's talk about some of the trades that have already happened, right? So let's just dive in. Let's start with the trade that happened today, right? And it involved your Los Angeles Dodgers. So at the end of it, right, and I don't know if you can combine this into one trade or if it was officially one trade or two trades or whatever it was, but the end result really being that the Dodgers end up with Michael Kopech, with Tommy Edman, 2 players that I think could be impact players depending on health, right? They end up with 2 players there. Eric Fetty, who was one of the more coveted, I think, available starting pitchers on the market, ends up going to a team that you could argue, and I think that you would argue, that desperately needs it in the St. Louis Cardinals, and the White Sox in return just get a haul of prospects from both teams. But let's touch on your Dodgers first, Dalton. In this whole trade, Michael Kopech, I think the stuff is phenomenal, but his ability to really put it together hasn't really been there yet. Big strikeout guy, but command hasn't always been there for him. Tommy Edman hasn't played a single major league game this year. He's been struggling with an injury that he suffered earlier last year. So what do you make of this whole trade? Start with the Dodgers and then touch on what you think the Cardinals did with this.
Well, I mean, I'll start with the Dodgers. I think Tommy Edman is, he started his rehab assignment back on July 9th. So he's going to be back. I mean, he if the Dodgers decided that they wanted to press the issue, they could have him in San Diego and in the lineup tomorrow night. I don't think they're going to do that, just because I think they want to get him fully healthy. So I think we'll probably see him in about a week. But I like the pickup of Tommy Edman. Now, if it's the only thing that we're doing, then obviously I don't like it. But I like the pickup of Tommy Edman because it raises our floor as a lineup. This is not a guy that's like a plus offensive player. He's going to go out there and hit 260 or 270, but he's an exceptional defender, an exceptional base runner. He can play all over the infield and all over the outfield. I think this results in fewer at-bats from guys like Nick Ahmed and Kevin Biggio and some of these guys who, like, we've kind of just picked up off the street to just be a warm body in a Dodger uniform. I think it's going to result in less of that. And put us in a position where we're fielding a little bit of a deeper lineup going into October. And it improves our defense. So acquiring a guy like Lane Thomas, I'm happy with. Miguel Vargas is somebody that I wanted to believe in. I still hope for the best for him, but I think the Dodgers are in a position where like they can't. It makes more sense to send him somewhere where he like isn't blocked by a million players in front of him. And so it makes sense to send him to Chicago. Outside of that, it was a couple prospects ranked kind of between 20 and 30 in the Dodgers system. So not guys who I'm too familiar with, frankly. Kopech, like you said, he's a project. 143 stuff plus. He's nasty, but he doesn't really know where it's going. If there's one organization that has a lot of success with guys like that, it's the Dodgers. So I feel good about that. I think it's a guy that could be an impact reliever for us late in the season, or he could not be, and that's fine too. But I think there's a decent enough chance that he becomes a really useful player. So I like the deal. It's not earth-shattering, but I like it. The team that really made out here like bandits were the Cardinals. Like, I'm trying to figure out, I guess from the Cardinals' perspective, I'm trying to figure out what they gave up. I mean, they gave up Tommy Edman to the Dodgers, who's been on the 60-day injured list, and that's it. That's the only, they didn't know prospects from the Cardinals in this deal, as far as I saw.
Yep.
So let's think about this from the Cardinals' perspective. Tommy Edman, who's been on the 60-day injured list, goes out, and you bring in Tommy Pham, who's arguably similar value to Edman.
Yeah.
And Eric Fetty, who some people would say is the best pitcher available on the market because I don't think Skubal's available. So, I mean, I guess I'm just confused as to, how this is possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but, how did the Cardinals manage to give up just Tommy Edman and acquire 2 impact players? How did they do this?
I mean, look, the White Sox have, I think the White Sox are really kind of interesting, right? I mean, do you think that this could have just been a product of, Eric Fetty's market was not as big as everybody thought it was? Because you and I can kind of draw a conclusion to where, okay, Eric Fetty's had a really nice year for Chicago. Chicago's been god awful all year, but Fetty has been one of their bright spots after not being in the major leagues for a couple of years. He comes back and kind of like a new version of himself and makes something of himself in the big leagues. Do you think that it's possible that some teams are saying, that's really the only thing, the only way that this would make sense is if Eric Fetty's market wasn't that big and the return that the White Sox were going to be getting was going to be minimal to none, and they were just going to, get in on the Dodger deal. That's really the only thing that I could really make sense of it, but I'm not even sure that that's plausible.
Yeah, I highly doubt that there was that thin of a market for Eric Fetty.
Yeah.
I just don't find that all that believable. So I don't
agree.
know. I mean, I guess the Cardinals also gave up, what's the guy's name? Oscar Gonzalez or whoever to the Dodgers in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, this is a 17-year-old playing in the Dominican Summer League right now. Talk about a flyer. Who knows, right? I guess I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting to hear what other prospects St. Louis is sending to Chicago, because otherwise I'm why are the Dodgers sending prospects and the Cardinals aren't? If the White Sox are giving away players, I want them to give me players. I don't want to have to trade with them.
Yeah, they're giving away players, then I'll just take Garrett Crochet for free. That's fine.
Right. From the White Sox perspective, obviously, you're getting rid of Fetty. You're getting rid of Pham. You're getting rid of Kopech. That's 3 players all in one. They get, Miguel Vargas is a real prospect. I mean, this is a kid who was at one point the Dodgers' #1 hitting prospect. he's struggled a bit in the big leagues, but he has looked a little bit better at the plate lately. I think this gives him more of a low pressure opportunity to maybe succeed. And so I like that flyer for the White Sox, but I don't like that flyer if that's the best thing you're getting when you're giving up all three of those players. So little perspective. I do want to make one note on Crochet because the demands that he was making I find fascinating. Basically, he's already pitched way more innings this year than he ever has professionally. And so what he's looking for from teams, just so our listeners kind of understand, what he's looking for from a team is some kind of assurance that, hey, if I'm going to stick my neck out there and I'm going to go an extra 60, 70, 80 innings for you down the stretch and potentially risk injury, I want to know that I'm taken care of. What he doesn't want to run into is a situation where he gets traded somewhere and they run him into the ground, and then all of a sudden now he's an arm injury guy and he can't make the money down the line that he wants to make. So it's do I think a team is going to do what he's asking? No. But do I understand why he's asking it? Totally. I get it. I also think it makes him probably an asset that doesn't get moved. Because, you have questions of well, how do those conversations go once he arrives in that new location? And does that team that he arrives in actually want to push him down the stretch? I think his market will heat up more in the winter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Crochet, I think my instant reaction to when Crochet made that sort of demand of a team that would acquire him, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I would significantly lower his chances of actually getting dealt now. That's something that a team is going to look at and be like, okay, so while you're thinking about your risk of getting hurt and losing an opportunity to make money, we are also going to be at risk of losing money on you if that were to happen to us, right? I just feel like a lot of teams aren't going to buy that, especially for somebody like you said, who, I mean, you and I can both watch him with our own eyes and say that Garrett Crochet is nasty, right? He's a really, he looks like he's a really solid big league pitcher, but we have 5 months worth of sample size with him. You know what I mean? And you're right. He's at a career high in innings. He's never pitched this many innings in a year.
Never even close.
Right.
Never even close. I think with it's a tough situation. I appreciate the fact that he's advocating for himself. I will say that.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. But all right. Any other trades that you want to talk about a little bit at length before we start going team by team?
Yeah, one more really. One more, and I think it's just because it might have been the most talked about move of the deadline so far, and I think that's Jazz Chisholm to the Yankees, right? And I think mostly it's because, and we don't have to spend too long on this because I know we're going to touch on the Yankees again in a minute, but I think a lot of what you brought up before when it comes to personality concerns, right? How is he going to mesh in this clubhouse? Certainly it looks like he's doing a decent enough job. Like you said, in early returns, it looks like he's panning out okay so far. One of the things I also want to bring up though about Jazz Chisholm, and this is really one of the reasons why I really like it. And there's actually a couple of reasons. I shouldn't say there's one. There's a couple. I think the return that the Marlins got on Chisholm is not groundbreaking for a 25-year-old with 2.5 years left of team control. Agustin Ramirez is a really solid minor league catcher. He has 20 home runs as a catcher in the minor leagues. He was one of the better offensive players in our minor league system. I get all that, but we've got 4 catchers ahead of him in our system. I really don't see that as much of a sacrifice. This is kind of what I texted you yesterday, and I was I think the risk Like the reward way outweighs the risk on Jazz Chisholm. If it doesn't work out, you really didn't give up all that much, right? He costs you nothing at the moment. He's going to be here for 2.5 more years. And on top of this, he's reuniting with James Rowson, who was his hitting coach in Miami when he was an all-star a couple of years ago, when he was having his best years of his career. I think that's something that shouldn't be lost in this as well. He's also not the man in this lineup. So, I think I'm with you on this. I think if this is all the Yankees do, I'm going to lose my marbles. I am. I'm going to lose my marbles. They need way more than this. But Jazz Chisholm's a really, really, really good start.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. I mean, it's from a Marlins perspective, it's just another organizational failure that, like, the prize piece of your organization by the time he's 25 and still under team control is getting traded away for what amounts to like the Yankees' maybe 10th best offensive prospect. That's just not. I mean, it's an organizational failure on the part of the Marlins, but it's what we've gotten used to with them. We do have some breaking news. The Dodgers just acquired Ahmed Rosario from the Rays. Ahmed Rosario, a guy very familiar to Dodger fans. We acquired him at the deadline last year as well. I think given what's gone on with the Dodgers from a health perspective, it's a reunion that makes sense. This is, again, even less groundbreaking than the Edman pickup. But we are talking about a guy that's batting over 300 this year in limited action. He's probably going to platoon mostly against lefties, but it's another guy who can play the field effectively for us up the middle. I'll put it this way: it's going to mean less Nick Ahmed. It's going to mean less Kevin Biggio. When you're putting Tommy Edman and Ahmed Rosario into those spots instead of those two guys, it allows us to kind of survive this Muncy-less and Betts-less period a little bit better and stay deeper come October. So,
yeah, I've seen plenty of Ahmed Rosario since he's been with the Rays, and he's been a fine offensive player for them since he arrived there. It's kind of sick in a way, the way the Rays do business. Because, don't you get the feeling, and we'll touch on the Rays in a minute, but the Rays have sold Zach Eflin. They've sold Isaac Paredes. They've sold Randy Arozarena. They've now sold Ahmed Rosario. They sold Jason Adam. They've dumped a lot of guys. But don't you get the feeling that they're going to be just fine? They're not going to have a period where they're going to be terrible because they're just going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just this is just kind of what Tampa does.
It is.
It's just what they do, and the reality is that this is the Arozarena deal was the only one that I looked at, and I was like, wow, that's giving up a dude who's valuable. But I mean, you look at these other deals that they're making, Eflin is fine, but the way Tampa develops starters, Eflin's just a guy, right? Ahmed Rosario at the end of the day is just a guy. He's 28. He's not some prospect, right? I mean, with Ahmed Rosario, you know what you're getting. It's a guy who is going to be an above-average hitter against lefties. He's fast, plays good defense. He's a floor raiser, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Rays are a team that has a lot of floor raisers, and it allows them at a deadline like this to sell off the ones who they can sell off, and it's not really going to affect them much. I mean, especially what it comes down to really with Tampa is their player development is just absurd. At the end of the day, guys like Ahmed Rosario need to get out of the way because Junior Caminero is on the way, right?
Yeah, right.
At one point, we were saying the same thing about Willy Adames. At one point, we were saying the same thing about Wander Franco. This is just what they do. Yeah,
it is. It is. It's remarkable how they do things. But okay, let's get down to business. So we'll start in the East. I want to, before we touch on the Yankees, because I know the Yankees are going to be busy, I want to touch on the Orioles first, right? So the Baltimore Orioles are an interesting team because they have been really heavily circulating in the starting pitching market, right? They already acquired Zach Eflin from the Orioles. I kind of saw that as like an ancillary filler move. I don't know that that's the thing that they're saying this is the guy that's going to anchor it down. I don't think that they view it that way. Obviously, we've heard them tied to Tarek Skubal quite a bit, right? How much of that is just fog, I don't know. And maybe they want to add another bat or so, but what do you make of what the Orioles have done, and what do you think they could do before tomorrow's deadline?
So I think the Orioles so far have done about what you'd expect. I don't think they need a ton of help offensively. Christian Pache is kind of just like an extra body that can play a good center field if they need him to, but not a guy who you're going to want to rely on. Austin Hayes is just the next in the line of the old Orioles guard that's getting kind of crowded out, which is a funny thing to say because it's not like he's that old of a player, but he's just kind of the next guy to get crowded out there. Sir Anthony Dominguez gives them a solid potential bullpen arm if he can throw strikes. And then Zach Eflin is a middle of the rotation starter, which is really not a bad thing at all for them to be acquiring. So I think what they've done so far makes sense. As far as moving forward from here, Skubal's not going to move. Like, he's just not going to move. That's one of those things where I will believe that there is a 1% chance of him moving once I see him move. Until then, there's a 0% chance of him moving in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
The name I think is interesting to watch. Do the Giants the Giants just got dominated in LA last week, right? They have a kind of a weak schedule left, but if the O's come in and blow them away, do they trade Snell? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think it is. It is.
That's the name that comes to mind for me with Baltimore. And personally, I would love to see it. I would love Snell to finally get the hell out of my hair in the NL West. But that's a name that I would watch with them. I also think a reunion with Flaherty could potentially make sense as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think starting pitching absolutely has to be their focus. They have to get deeper in the rotation. Flaherty, I think, is a bit of a safer option than Snell is, because I think Snell is while the ceiling with Snell, I think, is higher, I think his floor is lower. Snell's been pitching great of late. He just had that outing where he had 15 strikeouts in 6 innings. That's ridiculous. But yes,
listen, if you can get Flaherty or Snell for the same price, you're taking Snell. It's not even close.
Yeah. No, I agree. Snell is the better pitcher. I mean, I was banging my head against the table for Snell in the offseason. I wanted him so bad. I really did. My heart was shattered when he signed with the Giants. Okay. Let's talk about the Yankees. Jazz Chisholm. Nightingale broke earlier today that there was intense conversations happening with Flaherty. I'm interested to see, obviously, me as a fan, I'm interested to see what they do. I still think that they need another bat in the lineup, and I think they need a very specific kind of bat. They don't need another middle of the order guy. I want more of a leadoff centric hitter, somebody like Yandy Diaz, somebody like Jonathan India, somebody of that mold is somebody that I'm really looking for. And I still think that the bullpen is something that they should address, even if it's just one arm and then you rely on the guys that are coming back from injury, then I'm okay with that. Jazz Chisholm's a good start, but where do you think they go from here, Dalton?
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of what they're looking for. I think they're looking like you're not. I'll put it this way. They're not in the Luis Robert market, if that market makes sense, right? That doesn't make sense.
Correct.
But I think Jonathan India is a name I had written down already. I think that's one that makes sense. Luis Rengifo in Anaheim is another name that I could see making sense. But to me, Jonathan India is exactly the kind of player we're talking about here. Like just a right-handed bat, can kind of hit anywhere in the order. He's not like a game-changing type player, but he's good enough that if he's one of your ancillary pieces, he's making you better. Like Tommy Edman fits that mold too, right? It's the kind of mold that it would have made sense to me as well if the Yankees acquired Tommy Edman. Another name that comes to mind for me, the problem with him is you can't really put him anywhere on defense, but Brent Rooker in
Yeah.
that Yankee lineup would really, I mean, he would add a big right-handed bat for them. I think that's probably about the biggest bat I could imagine them going after.
Yeah.
There are a lot of interesting names like of that ilk that are out there. I mean, even like a reunion with a Gio Urshela, if you want to look even lower down in the market, right? Like a
Mhm.
Mark Hanna. I know these are not names that are going to excite you, but like we're talking floor raisers, right? We're not talking ceiling raisers with guys like
Yeah.
these. So,
Yeah,
uh,
no, I understand all that. Listen, I've been singing the praises of them trying to get Yandy Diaz for 2 days. I think he's a perfect fit in that lineup. I really do. And I don't think he's really out of reach. I'm begging, and this is the fan in me, okay? Because I understand that it would be a quality move, but it's so not sexy. Please don't let it be Luis Rengifo. Please don't let it be Luis Rengifo. That's the most boring upgrade I've ever heard of in my life. Dalton Brown, don't let it be Rengifo.
the thing is, sometimes boring wins, and like Luis Rengifo, I get that it's not a sexy name, but Luis Rengifo is batting 300 this year, and in 273 at bats. Like this is a solid player. He does not strike out. He doesn't swing and miss very much. Now, he's not like a great defender or anything, but he's a solid offensive player, and he's a switch hitter that mashes lefties. It's a useful player, man. Like I
Okay.
get it. He's on the Angels. He's not a big name, but it's like I'll put it this way: if the Dodgers acquired Rengifo, I'd be like, sweet, another floor raiser. I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be the buzz term of the day is floor raiser. I think that's what we're headed on this broadcast here. All right, let's go to the Boston Red Sox, the third place team in the AL East. This is an interesting team because I think like they're good enough to buy, right? Like they're definitely good enough to buy. What is it that they buy? They made somewhat of a move with Quinn Priester, giving up Nicky York to the Pirates for Quinn Priester. But what do you think that they do? You brought up weeks and weeks ago that they could entertain another starting pitcher. I would imagine they're going to try and add somebody to their outfield. I'd imagine they're going to try and improve their bullpen. This is a team that I think has a bunch of areas that they could improve in. What do you think they do?
They might be done. Like they went out and they got James Paxton from the Dodgers. Like they went out and they got Quinn Priester, who, by the way, I think that's a great pickup for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Priester's nasty, and I think we've seen time and time again that like there are a lot of pitchers that once they leave that Pirate system, they start to figure it out. So I think Priester like. That could end up really panning out for them. The Red Sox are good enough to buy, but they're not good enough that like they have to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're in a spot where it's like, hey, let's add a couple starting pitchers in the margins, see if we can get something, see if James Paxton can be useful and lengthen our rotation. Let's see if, Quinn Priester can be useful and lengthen our rotation. But the reality with this team is I think the Red Sox should be angling to like truly contend next year. That's where I think their mindset should be. It's similar a little bit to how I look at like the Royals, where it's like there's a lot of good things happening there, but I'm not sure if going balls to the wall for it this year makes sense. That's what I think with Boston. I think they might be done, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you, and I think so. I was on Boston Sports Summit with our buddy Tim Barnard, and he was asking me the same thing. Like, what do I think that they do? And I honestly said, like, they might just, for the most part, stay right where they're at and ride it out. Like, that's really what I think that and that's honestly probably what they should do. Don't mortgage your future to try to make one big splashy move and then it just doesn't work out. I also don't think that you should need to sell anybody. You don't need to sell Kenley Jansen. You don't need to sell, I don't think you need to do anything like that. Just keep developing your guys and see where it goes. Listen, the Red Sox are in a position like, and I think maybe you'll agree with me on this, and maybe you won't, but I don't know. But I kind of get the feeling about the Red Sox this year. The Red Sox could be this year's Diamondbacks almost as much as anybody in baseball. Like one of those teams that's a bit like they're not nearly a powerhouse, but they're noisy, they're scrappy, they're annoying, and they win games in kind of an unconventional way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when you say that, my first thought is like, Mike, I just don't think they're quite good enough. Mm-hmm. But I probably would have said the same thing about the Diamondbacks this time last year anyway, you know?
Right, yeah.
So like that, it's so hard to know who that team could be. I mean, I can name off 5 or 6 teams that I think fall into the category of like, hey, maybe they're that team.
Yeah, you know? Right. Well, right. They're definitely in that group, yeah. I think, though, of teams that could exceed some expectations. Yeah. Let's go to let's go to one of the big sellers, the Tampa Bay Rays. We touched on them briefly a little bit before. They've sold a lot of pieces, right? Paredes, Eflin, Arozarena, Ahmed Rosario, Jason Adam. It looks like Yandy Diaz could be on that list. It looks like Brandon Lau could be on that list. It looks like Pete Fairbanks could be on that list of guys that they are just looking to offload. What do you think the Rays do? Do you think the Rays are maybe done selling, or do you think that they're going to keep restocking their farm system and keep selling guys on their roster?
I mean, I think they're going to keep selling. I think Zach Littell moves. The names you mentioned, Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau, I'm like not as sure of, but I think there's a decent chance those two guys move. The relievers, like you mentioned, I could see them moving. The one thing about the Rays, man, is they hit these trades and they hit on them and they hit on them and they hit on them. Like I cannot believe that, and we're going to talk about the Padres in a little while, but the Rays deserve so much credit for what they get in these deals. Yeah, like they got real prospects, young prospects, but they got real prospects from Seattle. They got 3 of the Padres' top 12 prospects for a reliever. I mean, what in the hell is going on in San Diego that they're doing that? It's just like the Rays are just good at this, man. Like I'm trying to learn about this guy Michael Flynn that the Dodgers just traded away for him because I'm like, wow, this kid must be good if Tampa wants him. It's a little, like the Rays and the Dodgers to me, they both have that like sterling reputation of like, man, if they're going after a prospect, there's usually a reason why. Like, like the Dodgers trade Matt Beatty for River Ryan 4 or 5 years ago, and now River Ryan is shutting out Houston for 6 innings on the road. Like they're just really good at this, and so even when they're selling, I think they're giving their fans something to be at least somewhat excited about. Unfortunately, when those players come of age, they're going to get sold off too. But you give the Rays this: they're never going to be the best team in baseball, but they're also probably not going to be bad very often either.
No, the Rays are pesky, right? For a guy who watches them very, very, very often, okay? I never, to this day, I don't understand how they're ever good. Seriously, Zach Eflin is the highest paid player in that franchise's history, and somehow they're still good. I don't understand it. It is remarkable, though, how they develop players. They're just a very well-run organization. And like I said before, I just kind of get the feeling they're going to be just fine, regardless of who they give away. Toronto Blue Jays. They just traded Justin Turner to the Mariners. They just traded Yusei Kikuchi to the Houston Astros. It looks like it is sell time for the Toronto Blue Jays. Bo Bichette, Vladdy Jr. Vladdy Jr. obviously the big name in this one. What do you think they do here going up to the deadline? Do you think Vladdy Jr. gets traded? What do you make of what the Blue Jays are doing right now?
I mean, they're selling what they can of the veterans. They need to get rid of this core that's going nowhere and build a new core. I think the Blue Jays, more than any team in baseball, are in a position where they actively need to tear the house down and rebuild it. And part of it is like you look at the landscape of their division, you are not going to compete with the Yankees or the Orioles anytime in the next couple of years, most likely, right? You're probably not even going to compete with Boston in the direction they're going. The Rays are always going to be the Rays. Like, Toronto needs to just, like, smash it and start over. And I think we're starting to see them do that. We didn't even mention Danny Jansen getting traded to Boston. That was a nice little move for the Red Sox as well.
Yeah.
But, so Jansen's gone. Kikuchi's gone. Justin Turner's gone. These are all things that should be expected. To me, I think Chris Bassett is a name to watch. He's pitched exceptionally well lately. For example, if I'm the Orioles, I'm making calls on Chris Bassett. If I'm the Dodgers, I'm making calls on Chris Bassett. The Padres certainly could be involved on Chris Bassett. So that
you name them, the Padres are in on them.
Well, yeah, if anybody with a pulse, they're going to be in on. Again, Bichette and Vladito, I have no clue if they're going to move. I'll put it this way: I would not be shocked to see either one of them pop up on a blockbuster in the next 16 hours.
Yeah,
but I'm not really expecting either one of them to move at this point. Although I think the Blue Jays need to do. I think the Blue Jays need to tear it down. I think they should move them, but I don't think they will.
You and I have talked about it before. Vladdy Jr. to the Astros just makes so much sense. Oh boy. Could you imagine him in the middle of that order?
I'd rather not.
Oh, boy. Okay. What do you think? Switch to the National League, or should we just go to the Central?
Let's go to the Central.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, let's go to the first place Cleveland Guardians, right? So they just made a move. They've just brought in Lane Thomas from Washington. Listen, my personal opinion, I think they're done. Cleveland is not one of these teams that makes a whole ton of moves that often. This is a solid move. They needed a bat in the lineup. What do you think that Cleveland goes? Where do you think Cleveland goes from here?
I still think that they're canvassing for starting pitching, and not like Garrett Crochet, Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty starting pitching. I think like they're kind of the Brewers of the AL, where it's like the Aaron Civale type deal. Like maybe a Frankie Montas from the Reds, something like that. Just kind of a place filler type guy.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do anything major, but I could see them, an Alex Wood from the A's, right? Those are the types of names that I think of when I think of Cleveland right now, is just another starting pitcher that can eat some innings. Like James Paxton, when the Dodgers let him go, that's a team that I would not have been surprised to see go grab him. So that, but other than that, like Cleveland is starting to have a little bit of that Tampa Bay to them, where it just feels like they've always got another nobody who is going to step up and like be way better than you thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
An organization I'm starting to just want to give credit to, because I look at them going into this season, as you know, and I'm like, this team's bad. And then all of a sudden, Stephen Kwan is doing it again, and every single offensive prospect that they call up can hit for contact. They just create bullpen arms out of thin air, and they've got Class A still at the back of the bullpen. So Cleveland they're just going to be Cleveland. I think they are. At this point, they're the favorite to win that division. I think there's a decent chance that they do, but I don't think they're going to win a playoff series, and because this is just what Cleveland does. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But I do think that they might make another small move for a pitcher.
Yeah, I'm going to get you. Listen, if Cleveland wins the World Series, I'm going to get you a T-shirt with Chief Wahoo on it that says, "This team is ass." And you're gonna have to wear it. I think it's gotta happen, buddy.
That's fair. Hey, look.
Okay.
Eating it, man, and good for them. Like,
hey, listen, they have certainly exceeded expectations. Let's go to Kansas City Royals. They're interesting. Hunter Harvey. They made that move a while back. And you kind of touched on it hey, there you go. You kind of touched on it last week, I believe, when you said, hey, listen, they're kind of starting to believe that they have something here. What do you make of what Kansas City is doing? What could they possibly do at the deadline? What do you think?
I mean, they've done more than I think I would have expected. I mean, Michael Lorenzen is a nice get for their staff.
Yeah.
So, more power to him. And Hunter Harvey's great in the bullpen for that. So, look, I mean, I think kind of like the Red Sox, they're in a position to do some light buying.
Yeah.
There's also the argument to be made, and I think I touched on this last week as well. There's the argument to be made that it's like, well, are you ever going to get a year like this out of Seth Lugo again? Like, do we actually think this is who he is now, or is he having his Jeremy Lin year, right? Maybe you just try to take advantage of the fact that that's the year that you're having, and maybe you do try to splash, right? Like maybe Kansas City goes out and gets Jack Flaherty or gets Luis Robert and just says, screw it, we're going all the way in. It'd be fun to see. I'm not anticipating that. I think the Royals are probably about done. I think they've done enough to kind of improve the team a little bit. I don't think they're looking to go full bore. I think they might get themselves into the playoffs, and once you're there, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. I think I'm on the same page as you. I think they're just about done. And again, they fall in the same sort of category as the Red Sox for me. The Detroit Tigers, obviously Jack Flaherty's on the market. I would imagine that we could get a Jack Flaherty trade any minute, I think, at this point. Tarek Skubal's name has been thrown around a ton, and I know that we've touched on this a couple of different times. You really don't think that he's available, and I think I'm kind of with you on this. But it does seem like they're selling. They're kind of setting their sights on the future. They kind of recognize who they are this year. What do you make of what Detroit's doing so far?
I think Detroit is selling pieces that are not going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
Like Mark Hanna, Gio Urshela. Like those are guys who I think need to go. I think Andrew Chafin maybe finds a home somewhere else.
Yeah.
Guys like that, I think they sell off. Obviously, Flaherty didn't get, he didn't get pulled from his start today for nothing. Like he's getting traded somewhere. They sent off Carson Kelly to Texas in one of the least interesting moves of the deadline. But I think the Tigers are just going to sell off a few of their small veteran pieces who are just there on short-term deals anyway. And what the Tigers need to do is find some bats going into next year because the pitching's there. So that's what they should be thinking about. Is any deal that they make should just focused on hey, can we find somebody who can hit a baseball in 2025?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe the only team that, or I shouldn't say that, not the only team, a team that is fighting for that division despite the Guardians being so firmly in first place, but at least for a playoff spot, the Minnesota Twins, they've been quiet so far. What do you make of what they've, again, or the lack thereof, really? What do you think they need to do at the deadline to put themselves in a better position to compete for a playoff spot?
I mean, the Twins are a fairly well-rounded team, but they're not great at anything. The starting pitching is pretty good. The lineup is pretty good. The bullpen is okay. I think they're a team that could add to all three, and it would be good. I think if they added a starter, it'd be a good thing. I think if they added a bullpen arm, they added a bat, they could use all of it. I think the lineup is what they probably need to add to the least. I think if anything, they'd probably go for a starter. I look at them kind of the same way I look at the Guardians as far as what I think they would do on the starting pitching market. I think the Twins feel like they have a better roster than Cleveland and are hoping that that pans out eventually. The problem for them is they just can't keep their guys healthy. They can't keep Correa, Lewis, and Buxton all in the field at the same time. Yep. When those three guys are out there at the top of that lineup, it's a damn good lineup because it's a deep team. They've got catchers that can hit with Jefferson Vasquez. Willie Castro is a stud. Max Kepler is a really solid left fielder that can hit. It's a really well-built ball club, but they just can't seem to stay healthy. And I think the problem in Minnesota right now is they're pretty good at everything, but they're not quite great at any of it.
Mhm.
So I think it's why you're going to see them consistently contend. But when all of a sudden they run into like the big bad wolf, whether that be the Yankees or Houston or somebody like that, they don't quite have what they need to get over the top. And I don't
Yeah.
think they're willing to make the balls to the wall investments that they need to actually get past that.
Yeah. Listen, you brought them up before, and I understand that you said that lineup help is probably what they need the least, because you're right. When they are healthy, they are really, really solid. Especially, listen, Royce Lewis, it seems like every time Royce Lewis, it's a shame that he's never healthy, because when he is healthy, he's on pace for 7,000 home runs every year. But he's ridiculous. I know you brought up his name before, but I've always loved this, and I've never thrown it your way, because I kind of was waiting for a show like this to kind of throw it your way in this way, in this fashion. I would love to see Brent Rooker in this lineup. I would love to see Brent Rooker in this lineup. Imagine the protection that he could get, or that he could provide for everybody in the top or in the middle of that order. I mean, and that's somebody that, like, Minnesota's a place where he doesn't really have to play defense. Like, that's a place where he could go and DH full time.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is then you're asking Carlos Santana to play defense all the time, which I don't know. You're asking Buxton to play defense all the time, Willie Castro to play defense all the time. I don't know. I love the fit of the bat. I don't know how. I think the reality is you're going to have some bad defenders out on the field all the time, and I think Minnesota is a team that is built around its bats, not around its defense, and you just lean into that, right?
Right.
I mean, look, Brent Rooker, I really want him to move because the dude just mashes. Like, he's not a perfect ball player, but he mashes. I would love to watch it. Like, I'd love for the Dodgers to go pick him up. Like, I mean, of course he can't DH with us, but I would love that. Like, fuck it, man. Throw him out there in the outfield. Let's just see how it goes.
There you go. All right. Chicago White Sox. They're obviously selling what they can. The puzzling move that they made earlier with Eric Fetty, Tommy Pham is gone, Kopech is gone. Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, those are really two of the big ticket items, presumably, on the market. We touched on them a little bit briefly. Do you think those two end up getting traded? What do you think? What else do you think Chicago could offload? What do you make of the White Sox?
I mean, they're everything must go, and I think that's what they're doing. I give them credit for actively being active and doing it. That being said, I just don't think it makes any sense for Crochet to get traded at this point. Like, the guy is not going to be able to provide the value that you need to provide for what he's going to cost down the stretch. So why would a team trade for him? And why would the White Sox trade him? Like, trade him after the season. So I'm going to take Crochet out of it for a second. I think Paul DeJong is a guy that I could see a team that's looking for just like a minor infield upgrade or a floor raiser go for. So I think that's a name to maybe watch. I mean, maybe Andrew Vaughn, but there's not a ton of you're not pulling from a ton of talent there to begin with.
No.
The biggest name with them is Luis Robert. The thing with Robert, though, is you're talking about at the end of the day, you're talking about a guy that's hitting 214 and seemingly has questionable levels of care when he plays. I think that's a real thing that teams think about with him.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, from all that I'm hearing, are asking for a Juan Soto package. So I'm just not confident anything gets done. I think the White Sox don't always know how to evaluate their own talent. So, yeah, I mean, look, they should sell anything that people are willing to buy.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Can I ask you this question, though? Why would the White Sox trade Garrett Crochet at all? I mean, he's a young, controllable, nasty pitcher that in his first year as a starter has kind of shown you that at the top of his game, he can be a top of the rotation starter. Why would you even trade that guy?
Because I'm not sure the White Sox can actually rebuild this thing within his window. And I definitely don't think they can do it without moving a guy like him. That's really what I think it comes down to. And I also don't trust the White Sox to get what they should out of him. I just think if you're the White Sox, if you have something valuable, you need to turn it into something that could be valuable in the future right now. So it's a fair question. I mean, if you're a White Sox fan, you'd like to think like, hey, if we do a good job at this deadline and we make shrewd moves in the next couple off seasons, why can't we compete in a couple years? But like, are you confident in that? Because I'm not.
No, I'm not. But again, it's that's the thing is like young, controllable, nasty starting pitching is like it's so valuable in this game for a reason. You know what I mean? And the White Sox have it. So yeah, you're right. Can they really rebuild this thing in his window? Maybe they can't. But I don't know. I find that to be a very interesting sort of dynamic with Crochet, really.
Because here's the thing, right? Like every year that passes that you haven't traded Crochet, if you eventually do trade Crochet, you're going to get less.
Yeah, that's true.
This winter, he's going to get you more than he would next winter or the winter after. And if you're the White Sox, you need to rebuild this thing from the roots.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it comes down to.
All right, let's go to the AL West. The Houston Astros right now look like they are commanding that division with how Seattle has been playing as of late. Seattle's made a few moves, obviously, but Houston right now, they bring in Yusei Kikuchi. I personally do not think that this is a team that's going to just sit on their heels for the next 16 or so hours. I do think they should try to add another bat, some sort of first base help. What do you think for the Houston Astros?
Oh, I'm expecting them to continue to be active. I actually think that they might try to get another starting pitcher too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think the Astros are a team that's going to be active in general. They are talented enough that they don't have any other direction that makes sense for them but to buy. So
yeah,
I think like to me they're kind of like almost like a better version of the Twins, where like they're pretty good at everything, but they can use a bit of help everywhere potentially. Maybe not in the bullpen. I think their bullpen is kind of in okay shape, which is funny considering how it looked in April. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him grab a starter or a bat. I just think that they're a full-on buyer. What I'd written down for them is like you said, a first baseman, right? I mean, I think does Letito get moved to a place like that is an interesting question. Does Yandy Diaz get moved to a place like that is a question worth asking. Is that where Brent Rooker goes? I could see that happening as well. I could see Jonathan India getting moved there. A lot of interesting moving pieces there. Maybe, Abraham Toro in Oakland, if they're looking to operate a little bit lower in the market for a guy that can hit a little bit. I don't know. Andrew Vaughn. A lot of interesting names, but I think in general they're probably just canvassing for a bat and I don't know, maybe a starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm. No, it's certainly going to be interesting to watch them as the deadline draws a little bit closer. Seattle Mariners, they've added Justin Turner. They've added Randy Arozarena. They are certainly trying to help that lineup. They know they can't hit. They're trying to make it so they can hit. They have nothing but pitching. What do you think about what Seattle's doing? Are they done? Do they continue to try to add? What do you think?
I mean, Trader Jerry is going to keep being Trader Jerry to try to add. This is what they do, man. They just, they're going to keep flailing until they're done, until the clock strikes 4 p.m. tomorrow. Arozarena, by the way, homered tonight for them. They're down 12-3, but Arozarena homered, so good for them. But no, I mean, I think Justin Turner and Arozarena is a great 1-2 of guys to go get. I would not be shocked if they're in on any of these offensive names that we've mentioned.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised either. Turner and Arozarena, definitely guys with track records of being able to hit. Maybe they can, sort of spark something as the playoffs draw a little bit closer. The Texas Rangers, disappointing this year. I think we can kind of draw that conclusion a little bit. Not much movement so far. Lorenzen obviously got dealt to Kansas City. But guys like David Robertson, I know, have been talked about. Even guys like Nathan Eovaldi have been talked about a little bit. What do you make of the Texas Rangers? Who do you think they could offload? What do you think their direction should be? They're one of these more interesting teams that I think can get talked about here.
I don't think they're going to do much, to be honest. I think they're kind of just going to stand pat and hope to find a way to compete this year next. What I want to see happen is a fire sale where everybody except Max Scherzer gets dealt, and Max Scherzer just has bigger and bigger clouds of smoke coming out of his ears as he gets more and more angry that they're selling. That is what I would find most entertaining in Texas, because Max Scherzer has been super vocal and adamant about we're not selling, we are not selling, we are still in this thing, we're competing, and it's well, they just traded away Lorenzen, buddy. So maybe you're selling. But no, I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. I think maybe they move a reliever. If there are any bats who are under control for just this year, maybe they move. I'm struggling to think of anybody off the top of my head. But this is a pretty talented young team that I think is waiting on pitching reinforcements, and maybe that means 2025.
Yep. No, it's possible. I know you've been kind of rooting for the whole we're just going to sell we won our World Series. Now we're just going to sell everything and get over it sort of deal.
It's fascinating in that sense because you just don't see that. You win a World Series and you're a seller the next summer. It's wild.
Yeah. Yep. Let's go to the Anaheim Angels. See, I got it right this time. See, you don't have to yell at me anymore. Carlos Estevez ends up going to the Phillies. Luis Rengifo obviously is one of the big names being talked about. I've also heard Taylor Ward's name thrown around a little bit. Angels, what do you make? Like I said, the big thing right now, Estevez to the Phillies. We'll touch on them in a bit. But yeah, Angels, go ahead.
Yeah, the two prospects they got back from the Phillies for Estevez have been kind of shooting up in the Phillies system. So good job to the Angels on that one, which is not so much you're going to hear me say very often of anything that Perry Minasian or Artie Moreno do. Yeah, I mean, they'd like to move Rengifo. They'd like to move Ward and see what they can get. You're going to laugh. If they're not going to do this. But if I'm the Angels, I'm trying to trade Mike Trout.
Mm-hmm. I would too.
That's what I'd be doing. But Artie Moreno is an idiot. They're a poorly run organization. It's a Mickey Mouse operation up and down. They're an embarrassment to professional baseball. They're going to try to trade away Rengifo and Ward, and they'll get some prospects back, and they'll go out in free agency this offseason and sign some 37-year-old and try to convince everybody that it's a good thing. And they're I don't even like talking about the Angels. I think the Angels should be moved to a different city and sold to new ownership.
Well, okay. There's that then. Let's last American League team, the Oakland A's. We really, I mean, again, you would kind of imagine that there'll be sellers at some point. Brent Rooker, Alex Wood, among these kind of guys that could be dealt around. What do you think? Wrap up the American League with the Oakland A's here.
Yeah, I mean, the A's hit homers, so that makes them fun. We talked about that, but. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Rooker could move. Lucas Erceg in the bullpen is a name to watch. Yep. He's nasty. I could see a number of teams being interested in him. Maybe an Abraham Toro, Ross Stripling, Alex Wood. Teams that are looking for floor raisers are going to be looking to Oakland in the next 12 to 16 hours. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'd like to see them make a move or two. By the way, speaking of teams that need to be sold to new ownership, um, that's a whole
Yeah.
other thing. But
Doesn't even need to be said. You're right. That's 100% true.
but yeah, I mean the A's, like, what can you say, right? Like they're a seller. It is what it is.
Yeah. No, I thought it was hysterical. I forgot to bring this up to you before, but I saw something on Twitter before that said it was after the Dodgers got Michael Kopech, and it was like 1 month after. It was captioned like 1 month after the Dodgers have gotten to work with Michael Kopech, and it's just a picture of Mason Miller. Just to see, like, I thought it was hysterical. But okay.
That'd be awesome.
Hey, listen, he's got the stuff, dude. He's got the stuff, and we'll touch on that a little bit later as well. All right, so the NL East. Let's begin with the Phillies. Carlos Estevez from the Angels. We just touched on that a little bit. Austin Hayes from Baltimore. I got to be honest with you, Dalton. I hated the Austin Hayes move for the Phillies. I really didn't think that was a great move. Austin Hayes is, I know they wanted to upgrade in the outfield. I don't know how much of an upgrade Austin Hayes is. And you're giving up Seranthony Dominguez, who has been lights out for them in the postseason of recent years. I didn't like the move. What did you make of what Philly has done and what they could potentially do before deadline time?
Yeah, I didn't really get the move either. I guess maybe they think that there's something else that Austin Hayes can be that he hasn't been. I don't know. That move kind of had me scratching my head. It's also not one that I spent a ton of time thinking about, but yeah, I didn't think that made a ton of sense either. For Philly, the Estevez move is a really good one. I think in their mind, he's an upgrade over Seranthony Dominguez. Sure. They're going to need to do more than Austin Hayes. A name you mentioned earlier that I think makes a ton of sense for the Phillies is Taylor Ward. Like just as far as like adding another outfield bat, I think that's probably what they're looking to do. There are people out there who think that the Phillies are the team to watch with Luis Robert. That would certainly be pretty scary for the National League.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I think in general, an outfield bat is what they're looking to acquire. And I think they will acquire one, at least one, before the deadline tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Atlanta Braves, they've been quiet. You and I spent how long saying, "Oh, the Braves, they always make moves before the deadline. They'll figure something out." Crickets, yeah. Dalton Brown.
I think like 2021 and this year, 2021, obviously when they won the World Series, were similar in the sense that it's like, oh, Acuna's out. Like, oh man, injuries. Like, oh, what are we gonna do? Man, now it's Albies, it's Acuna, it's Strider, it's Fried. Like, I even heard of people talking about maybe they move Max Fried. Like maybe the Braves lightly sell a little bit.
Wow.
I'm not bought into that. I think the Braves at this point maybe acquire something small, but like they might just punt. Like if I'm Atlanta, I think I'm just running clock. Like you're probably gonna make the playoffs with the roster that you have. Maybe you guys get hot and you do something once you get there, but like at this point you're playing for 2025. Like the Dodgers have had it rough. The Braves have had it rough this year with the injury bug. So a lot of injuries and a lot of underperforming, really. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, obviously, like a lot of guys that are really kind of performing below expectations for the most part. Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're Atlanta, you're kind of just like, well, we're just going to roll with what we got and see what happens. At least that's my mindset with them. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And to be honest with you, like I'm almost not sure that that's what they shouldn't do either. Like that's kind of like just kind of see where you're at for the rest of the way. And if you make a run, you make a run. If you don't, you have next year with the same roster and then you just go again. So speaking of which, I'm sure people are dying to hear us talk about this. The New York Mets.
So Kodai Senga comes back. He then falls down to another injury. Really unfortunate for him. He's a really talented pitcher. That's I think going to have a very solid major league career. But it looks like Alonso's going to stay. It looks like the roster is going to be pretty much intact. What do you think the Mets do here, Dalton? They're playing good baseball right now.
I mean, I don't think they really should do a whole lot more. I mean, they went and got Jesse Winker, like nice little bat.
Ryan Stanek to the bullpen as well, yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Stanek to the bullpen. Like, I think that the team went out and earned the right to tell ownership, hey, bye. Ownership said, sure, we're going to add a little bit. Of course, Mets fans want them to go out and acquire every single person under the sun, but I think the Mets are probably about done. I think they've done what they should do, and maybe they go get a starting pitcher with Senga going down. But like, if you're a Mets fan, do you really want to be like aggressively chasing it with this roster? Like, I'm not sure that it makes sense. So I don't know. To me, the Mets are one of those teams, kind of like the Red Sox, that are kind of sitting in that middle ground, and like, I don't know. I'm not anticipating a ton from them, but I could be wrong.
I find that to be hysterical. To get to transition into the Mets, you then put on their hat and then roll your eyes immediately after. I think that is an ultimate trolling of their fan base if I've ever seen it.
Mike, I don't think you understand. Like, there are teams that I like the Astros. I have some disdain toward just from the stuff that happened, right?
Yeah.
The Angels I despise but don't respect. The Giants I hate because they're our rivals, but I kind of respect them. The Mets I just find fucking annoying. Like, they just annoy me. Their fans annoy me. The organization annoys me. Like, Gary Cohen and Ron Darling are good at what they do, but they annoy me. It's just an organization that they're kind of nails on a chalkboard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, as soon as things start going well, they are the loudest people on earth about it. And as soon as things start going poorly, it's a whole bunch of Frank the Tanks like screaming into the abyss about it.
Yeah.
I want the Mets to just sit in purgatory forever.
Love to hear that. Let's go to the Miami Marlins. So they've made a few, right? Jazz Chisholm ends up going to the Yankees. That's their big one. Obviously, there's been names thrown around with them for a while, right? Jesus Luzardo has been thrown around with them. AJ Puck was traded as well. Like, what are we kind of seeing with Miami? They obviously traded Luis Arias early in the year. Like, they told their fan base early on that they were done. So what do you make? What do you think of the Marlins?
Yeah, I mean, they put Josh Bell on waivers today as well.
That's so wild.
If they can find a suitor for Jake Berger, they'll trade him. If not, they'll probably do the same thing with him. Like Trevor Rogers, if somebody wants to acquire him, they'll like you name anybody on that roster and they're willing to trade him. I think they're kind of in a similar position as the White Sox, where they're like, hey, anybody on our roster who you think has value, like, we're going to move them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look for them to sell. It's funny because on my notes here, next to each team, I wrote just a couple words of notes of kind of what I wanted to hit on. For the Marlins, I put the word sell with a sad face because it's a sad scene there. The Nationals, I put the word sell with the happy face because you're selling, but you like the direction that you're moving in.
Yeah. So let's touch on the Nationals. So Jesse Winker, Lane Thomas, obviously they both get traded, but like you said, you kind of like the direction of where this team's going.
Yeah. I mean, the Nationals are enjoying the spoils now of past selling done effectively. And guys like James Wood breaking into the majors. Like, I get that he's not a world beater yet, but like, he's been about a league average hitter, and the sky is the limit for that kid. C.J. Abrams is one of the best shortstops in baseball, quietly. Several of their pitchers are really putting it together. They're a fun team. like they're a team that's moving in the right direction, and a team that like within the next 1 to 3 years is going to be seriously investing in a contender. So if you're the Nationals, you're selling, but you're not selling frantically. It's not a horrible spot to be, like selling with a happy face as opposed to selling with a sad face.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. They have definitely a positive outlook. So the NL Central, I want to start with the Cubs because I think they made one of the more interesting moves of the entire deadline, right? Because they acquired Isaac Paredes from the Rays. Christopher Morel ends up going to the Rays in that deal. What do you make of what the Cubs are doing? And do they continue to sell? Like, what are they doing here? I'm not saying that any of their moves are bad or anything like that, but I think when we all saw the Paredes deal, right, it was originally reported Yankees and Dodgers are in a bidding war for Paredes, and then the Cubs come out of nowhere and swoop in and steal him from both. So what do you make of the whole thing?
Dude, I have no clue. The whole reason I wore a Cubs hat to start the show tonight is because they're the team that I'm like most fascinated by at this deadline. Yeah. Like I was expecting them to be selling off pieces, including potentially Cody Bellinger, Ian Happ, guys like that. And instead they're going out and acquiring an all-star third baseman. I have no idea what their thought process is. I think they're a totally unpredictable team right now. Like I don't feel like I have a very good finger on the pulse of what the Cubs are doing. I do want to share, we have absolutely massive, earth-shattering news coming through the baseball world right now, as you would expect. The Pittsburgh Pirates are acquiring left-handed reliever Jalen Beeks from the Colorado Rockies for minor league left-hander Luis Peralta. Mike, I want your immediate reaction to the Pirates acquiring left-handed reliever Jalen Beeks.
You do? That's what you want? You want my immediate reaction to that? You send me in the private chat, I have massive breaking news, and you give me Jalen Beeks? That's brutal.
I'm just having a little fun. But
man. By the way, Jalen Beeks is awful. I've always kind of thought he was awful. Even ever since he was a Red Sox prospect, I never thought Jalen Beeks was any good. Nothing but respect for the guy. But continue.
Yeah, there are certain moves that I get like a Jeff Passan tweet notification for that, or a retweet notification from him that I'm like, Passan, aren't you above this?
Yeah,
like,
right.
like, that's one of those trades that I'm not even sure needs to be reported at the national level.
Right.
Which is why I thought it would be funny to break it as this huge breaking news. But
we'll touch on that when we touch on the Pirates in a minute.
Yeah, but back to the Cubs, Mike. I have no idea what they're doing, man. None. Like I don't have a ton of commentary on them because I don't know what they're planning, what they're doing. I thought they would sell. So far, they've looked like a pure buyer. And they traded away Morel, too, in the deal that got them Paredes. I don't totally get it from the Rays' perspective because I like Paredes a lot better as a player. But, man, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm confused to say the least. I'm at my grandfather's house right now. I'm visiting him in upstate New York. And after an 8-hour drive, I pull into my grandfather's driveway after reading earlier that morning that Isaac Paredes is in a dogfight right now between the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be exciting for me and Dalton to talk about on Monday. And then I check my phone as soon as I arrive and they say Isaac Paredes acquired by the Cubs. And I'm like, well, that is really deflating. That was the most that couldn't have been more uneventful. It was unbelievable.
Just weird, man.
Yeah, super, super odd. St. Louis Cardinals. They get Tommy Pham. They get Eric Fetty. Clearly, they're buying. What do you make of them?
I've kind of come full circle a little bit on the Cardinals. I think Eric Fetty's legitimately good.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those dudes that went overseas and actually figured it out. So I love that move for them. I love the move to acquire Tommy Pham for them. I think they got better today, and I think
They did.
there's a chance they go and acquire another pitcher and continue to get better. And I'll tell you what, man, like Milwaukee better watch out in that division because Yelich's injury, like I'm not sure Yelich is coming back this season with that back
Yeah.
injury. And Milwaukee does not seem very interested in adding to their ball club, which I'm going to talk about them in a minute. But, like, they better watch out, man. St. Louis, like, if you put a gun in my head right now and ask me who wins that division this year, like, I might be saying St. Louis, as weird as that is, given that they're, like, 6 games back.
So do I get at least a little credit here? At least a little bit?
You do.
For talking about the Cardinals?
No, you do. I mean, look, I did not think that they had the bats to overcome that rotation. And I've been wrong so far. No, I mean, they're not great. They're floating around 500 realistically. But but they're better than I thought they'd be.
Yeah. No, listen, they're an interesting ball club. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. They made one small move so far. Yelich is potentially out for the year.
Yeah.
And despite having one of the coolest hats in Major League Baseball, I mean, listen, I just we talked about it a while ago, and you asked me if I would consider the Brewers losing the division as a collapse, and I said yes, because I don't think that the team that they lose it to is a good enough excuse for them to not win the division at this point. What do you make of what the Brewers have been doing, or lack thereof, really?
Yeah, they're not really doing anything. I mean, I guess they went and got Savale, but like, is he better than Colin Ray or Bryce Wilson? Like, I don't know that he really is.
Yeah, right.
So like, I think the Brewers they're a team that's been like playing over their heads, and a little bit like how I feel about the Guardians. Like, I feel like the Guardians have been playing above their talent. I think even Kansas City has been playing a little bit above their talent. Those teams are going out and investing in it. The Brewers aren't. The Brewers seem like they're just kind of sitting here like, well, all right, let's see what happens. I don't know. Like, if I'm a Brewers fan, I'm like kind of disappointed and anxious right now. I think that they should be doing more, like both offensively and defensively. I think like if I'm the Brewers, I'm making calls on Chris Bassett. Like, I'm making calls on Taylor Ward. I'm making the Brewers should be making all kinds of moves. I don't know.
I'm not sure if I were the Brewers that I wouldn't be in on Luis Robert. Like I don't know that outfield is crowded enough for me to not consider that as an option.
Oh, I mean, like there are a ton of teams in the league that in theory should be in on Luis Robert.
Well, yeah.
Like what we know of the Brewers organization, I just can't see them entering the conversation. So therefore, the thought doesn't really enter my head.
Yeah. But and I guess that's really kind of where my head is pointing. Is even if it's not Luis Robert specifically, I'm not sure that they shouldn't be big ticket shopping either. You know what I mean? Like, this is a team that is on top of this division for now. You've exceeded expectations from what everybody thought of you at the beginning of the season. Why wouldn't you just try to capitalize on that and compete in this National League? Even if you're looking up at the Phillies and you're looking up at the Dodgers, why wouldn't you at least just go for it, at least to some extent?
Like, the thing that's so frustrating for Milwaukee is like the National League is as gettable this year as it has been anytime recently. Like, the Dodgers, if they're healthy, are special. But the Dodgers are really not healthy. Like, Bobby Miller does not look like himself. Yamamoto, we're hoping we get back in September. Betts, we're hoping we get back in September. Like, the Dodgers are a mess right now. I think it's going to relatively work itself out between now and October, but the Dodgers are a mess right now. And that division that they're in is so gettable. Like, I don't understand. I agree with you. I think they should be doing a lot more. By the way, quite a return for the Blue Jays. Jeff Passan just tweeted out what their return was for Kikuchi from the Astros. Right-handed pitcher Jake Bloss, who's been pitching for the Astros a little bit in the bigs as a rookie. Joey Loperfido, Duke guy who I'm a big fan of, but he can hit. Loperfido goes to the Blue Jays, and infielder Will Wagner, son of former Houston great Billy Wagner, I was not expecting to see Joey Loperfido's name in that deal.
Yeah, neither was I.
Especially for a guy like Kikuchi, who, like, don't get me wrong, he's fine, but like, I don't think he's a guy that you're trading away top prospects for usually. So,
Yeah. I'm with
yeah,
you on that. That's surprising to me. I did not expect Loperfido to be in that.
yeah, good for Toronto. But yeah, Milwaukee, I'd be disappointed. I think like my note on them that I wrote is I just wrote, is anyone awake?
Yeah.
It's like, is their front office just taking a nap? They're like, all right, we went and got Aaron Savale. We did it, guys.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how you have to feel. I mean, you're in first place, and you're not comfortably in first place anymore. I don't know. I feel like you can't really be quiet. All right. So the Pittsburgh Pirates, they just made the unbelievable move of adding Jalen Beeks. So what do you think? I mean, obviously they're a powerhouse now with the addition of the superstar Jalen Beeks into their pitching staff. But I don't know. What do you make of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to process that move. It kind of shook me to my core, but yeah, Pittsburgh is. I mean, they're just standing pat, is how I look at this deadline for them. I mean, look, they're over 500. Like, with more than 100 games played, they're over 500. So like, that's exciting for the Pirates. They're 2 games out of the wild card. Like, there's an argument to be made for them buying, but they're not going.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the feeling that they won't, but I mean, like, at the right price, you'd have to imagine that a bat would be on their list, right? Like, this is a team that has a rotation that, could make noise in the postseason. We've talked about that before. If they could just hit a little bit, then maybe something.
We talked last Monday about how they're a team that in theory should be in on a guy like Luis Robert. Now, of course, we know they're not going to be, but they're a team that in theory should be. Same thing, like, they're another team that, to me, like, why aren't you making calls on Taylor Ward? Why aren't you making calls on Jonathan India? Maybe they don't want to trade him in the division. I don't know. Why aren't you making calls on Rooker? Like, there are bats out there. They might not be amazing bats, but there are bats out there. Jamer Candelario. Like, make calls on these guys. Like,
yeah,
because they're a team that if they can hit, they can contend. Like, legitimately, if they can hit, they can contend.
Yeah.
But look, this is just one of those things where it's like we know the Pirates well enough that, like, I mean, think about it this way. They're 1 game behind St. Louis, and yet those 2 organizations feel light years different right now because we believe that St. Louis is going to go for it. And, like, what it comes down to with the Pirates is I don't believe that their ownership wants to win that badly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because Paul Skeens looks like he's one of the best pitchers in baseball already, right? And, Mitch Keller and Jared Jones look like they're good complements into that rotation. And this is a team that has struggled offensively all year. And you just get the feeling that if you could just add a bat or 2 into that lineup, you could at least be somewhat of a disruptor in the playoff picture, right?
Yeah.
So interesting to see where that goes, and it's a shame if they don't really make much noise. The Cincinnati Reds, they're a bit of a younger team. Frankie Montas could be on the move. Jonathan India could be on the move. What do you make of what Cincinnati could be doing before tomorrow?
Yeah, I think the perfect deadline for Cincinnati would be you get some prospects for Jonathan India, you get some prospects for Frankie Montas, maybe you move a bullpen arm like a Fernando Cruz or somebody like that. And other than that, you just kind of stand pat. Like, they're not in fire sale mode. They're definitely not buyers. That's about where I'd put them.
Yeah. Nope, I'm with you. Okay. Last division, NL West. Let's go to your Dodgers. Dalton Brown, Michael Kopech, Tommy Edman, right now highlighting what they've done at the deadline so far. Where do you think they need to go? I mean, listen, you're heavily tuned in, right? So give it to me. What do they need?
Look, they need to be going bigger. And it's funny. I actually don't there are people out there who are like, oh, they need to acquire a starting pitcher. And it would be great. Like, it'd be very nice if they went and got a Jack Flaherty, which I think I heard something about the Dodgers being in talks on Flaherty today. Great. Like, I would like that. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're the team that, I would say Taylor Ward, but the Angels are like pretty on their record that they don't want to talk to the Dodgers about anything because they're a bunch of pissy babies down in Anaheim. But like I mean, Rooker, if you can put him in the outfield, would be great. Obviously, Luis Robert. I think like they've kind of addressed the infield needs a little bit, but I think like another outfielder would be helpful. Somebody who can hit. Like maybe they call the Twins and see if the Twins want to make some kind of a like 1-for-1 major league talent type move around a guy like Max Kepler. A
reunion with Cody Bellinger.
Man, I would love that. I would really love that, but I don't think that they're going to do it. I just don't like. I'm not sold on the Cubs selling at this point, but man, that would be fun. I think in general, they need to be just more active. I would like to see like my perfect deadline for them tomorrow would be Jack Flaherty and like a splashy bat, a splashier than expected bat.
Yeah.
It's funny too because everybody's so down on Bo Bichette. I would love if we can buy low on Bo Bichette at the price that he's at now. Like not pay on like the potential price with him, but pay on like the buy low price on Bo Bichette. I am so in on that.
Yeah.
Like, cause there's so much talent there. Like, I really think he's going to put it together at some point. He's just too good not to. And I think the Dodgers are a great place for that to happen. So I would love to see something like that happen. I don't think it will. I'm just hoping that like Ahmed Rosario, Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech, like if that's our deadline, I'm going to be like, guys, no, like, this is World Series or bust territory right now. Like that's not what World Series or bust deadline looks like, period.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they got to make a little bit more noise. Go a little bit bigger. Starting pitching is something that I think that they need to address too. Like I said, you touched on Flaherty. Just being in that market, I think they could really upgrade in that area.
The thing with the Dodgers starting pitching wise too is like, part of the reason that my mind is so focused on a bat is because like we're just like organizationally we're so fucking deep with the pitching. Like I don't know if you've been paying attention to like River Ryan. The guy is nasty. Like,
he looks gross.
He's like Jared Jones. I mean, he's been gross. And he's got very little usage on his arm. Like he's not a guy whose pitch count is going to have to be watched late this season because he's coming off an injury. Justin Robleski has been great. Gavin Stone has been great. Kershaw came back and looks pretty good. Glasnow, Glasnow, my hot take was not actually hurt. The Dodgers just wanted to give him a few weeks off. Like there was never any clear indication of like what the issue was with him. I think the Dodgers were like, we don't want you pitching the All-Star game. We want you taking a couple weeks off. So like starting pitching, I would like to see them add, and I understand why that's where the mind goes, but like every time they call up some dude to start a game, you're like, whoa, this dude's good.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I trust them to figure that out. The hitting, like you can. Oh, we got another trade that just came through.
Big.
The Milwaukee Brewers awoke from their slumber to acquire Frankie Montas from the Reds.
Wow. So they did do something.
They did do something.
What do you make of that deal?
Was that a name we just mentioned for them? I think it was.
It might have been. Yeah, I think it was. Might have. Well, look, you mentioned starting pitching as something that they could improve upon, and Frankie Montas, in theory, does just that. Yeah.
I mean, I'll put it this way. Like, that's a more exciting move to me than Aaron Savale. And
it definitely is, yeah.
So I think it makes a ton of sense. As a Dodger fan, I'm happy to hear it because the Brewers were a name that I was hearing a little bit attached to Flaherty. And I think this possibly takes them out of the Flaherty conversations.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm with you on that. So there you go, Milwaukee Brewers. You have awoken from your sleep and finally made a move to potentially improve your roster. Congratulations. I still think that there's more to do, though. The San Diego Padres I mean, it's been crickets so far, Dalton. They really have made almost no noise at all. What do you make?
I mean, they went and got Jason Adam and paid.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Sorry, slipped the mind.
3 of their top 12 prospects.
Yep.
For a homophobic reliever, I just don't like. And look, I'm just throwing that out there because it's a funny way to define the guy because it's the first thing I think of when I hear his name. But like, but I don't care who the reliever is. Like, did you not learn your lesson with like the Josh Hader situation with like watching Milwaukee deal him? Did you not learn your lesson there? Like, what are you doing paying this heavy for a reliever again? The Padres, they reek of desperation at all times. And this is what I'm talking about with them. They will always buy at the top of the market. They're willing to pay top dollar. They want to be splashy. They're going to go sign Xander Bogaerts to an 11-year deal for reasons unknown. They're going to trade away 3 of their top 12 prospects for a reliever. They're going to trade away the entire farm for Juan Soto and not be able to keep him for longer than a year and a half. This is who they are. Like, and Preller, like it or not, is going to continue to just swing and swing and swing for the fences until he's fired. I think what that looks like this year could be more pronounced than ever. Mike, let me put it to you this way. If you were to say, hey, Dalton, I'm coming to you from the future. Tarek Skubal is getting traded. Luis Roberts getting traded. Garrett Crochet is getting traded. Like, you start naming Blake Snell's getting traded. You start naming all of like the big names that we think are like, maybe they're not actually going to get moved. And if you were to come to me about each of those individually and say, hey, they got traded, you got to get it right to stay alive. Who'd they get traded to? Padres. If a big name moves, the Padres are the most likely team to do it. They are going to give up every single asset on that farm that cannot help them in 2024 because they are hell-bent on winning a World Series this season. It is all Preller cares about because he wants to keep his job. So if Luis Robert gets moved, the Padres are the favorite, period. If anybody gets moved, the Padres are the favorite.
Listen, you've been proven right on several of those occasions, right? I mean, Dylan Cease is another example of that as well from this offseason. I mean, you're 100% right. It's what they do. They buy. That's what they do. Speaking of the opposite of buy, might be sell for the San Francisco Giants. Blake Snell, who had trouble getting signed to begin with in this offseason, is now on the trade block again. We're now looking for. Listen, he's been much better of late. Like I said, he just had an outing of 15 strikeouts in 6 innings. So it certainly looks like. I mean, as far as the rumors are concerned, it certainly looks like that Blake Snell is like his name is starting to get more and more run in the rumor mill at the moment. What do you think about what the Giants are doing? What do you make of them?
I think the most likely scenario is that they kind of stand still. Like, it's possible that they sell, but I think it's difficult for a team that spent as much as they did in the offseason to turn around and be okay with selling.
Right.
And so in that sense, like, I have a feeling that they're going to stand still. I think moving Snell is something that could make some sense for them to do. I think if they can get value on a guy like Thairo Estrada, if they can get something of value back, even for like a Mike Yastrzemski, Michael Conforto, Wilmer Flores, like, to me, these are all guys that like contending teams might not hate to have around.
You think they could trade Matt Chapman?
Yeah. I can see it. It's really just a matter of like, are they willing to give up? And I'm not sure that Farhan Zaidi is willing to give up because they invested so much in this roster and they invested so much in telling their fans, like, no, we're actually going for it now. Like, no, we made a real run at Ohtani. We made a real run at Judge. We're not going to be one of those teams that's not competing. Like, we're going for it. and they're only 3.5 back of the wild card. Like they're still in it. They have I think they might have the easiest schedule in baseball left. So I think they're going to stand pat and just see what happens. If they do sell, I would expect it to be names that are more like Wilmer Flores, Tyro Estrada, and not names like Chapman, Snell, guys like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that could be pretty interesting. I'm almost like, this is just my personal belief on this. I just kind of get a feeling that Blake Snell's going to get moved. Like, I just kind of get a feeling that Blake Snell is going to move within the next 16 hours. Like, I get that feeling. I don't know why. I just get it. I feel like he's going to get moved.
Blake Snell, welcome back to San Diego.
It's very possible. Okay, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're in it right now, Dalton. They really are. They're in the thick of things. They're about where they were last year, right? Like, this is kind of what they are. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Arizona is a team that, like, they've really turned the corner offensively lately. And you got to give them credit. Like, they're a team that was kind of left for like, right, they were a one-year wonder, blah, blah, blah. I think they've won every single series they've played in July. Yeah, I'm looking through it right now. They took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, 2 out of 3 from San Diego. Now they split 4 with Atlanta, 1 2 out of 3 from Toronto, 1 2 out of 3 from Chicago, 1 2 out of 3 in Kansas City, 1 2 out of 3 from Pittsburgh. Like, they haven't lost a series since June 25th.
Wow.
It's a good team, hot team. And they're getting healthier. Eduardo Rodriguez is on his way back. Jordan Montgomery is on his way back. And, look, I mean, he was terrible earlier this season, but maybe he comes back and remembers how to pitch.
Yeah.
Merrill Kelly's coming back. Like, we talked about this, I think, last week. Like, they're getting healthier in the rotation. They've shown that they can hit a little bit. Do I think they're going to go out and, like, buy aggressively? No. But I think a move like what they did for AJ Puck is about what I expected from them. Like, maybe they go try to get another bullpen arm. Maybe they go find another lower end bat like an Urshela. I don't know. But I credit to them for kind of sticking in it.
Yeah. No, listen, I always have a warm spot in my heart for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I got family in right outside of Phoenix. Oh, stop it with you. Jeez Louise. All right, finally we wrap up the National League, the Colorado Rockies.
No, listen, let me just shit on the Diamondbacks for a second, okay?
Oh, okay.
Here's what you got to understand about Diamondbacks fans. They're all former Dodger fans who now just live in the desert and their brains so fried that they've given up on life and now they root for Arizona.
Wow. Okay.
That's my, like, overtly asinine take on Diamondbacks.
Well, listen, I appreciate the preface of saying overtly asinine, just to kind of, cushion that blow, I think. Okay, Colorado Rockies. One of the things that I found interesting about them is that they said, like, at the beginning, absolutely not. And I don't know how much of a smokescreen this is or it isn't. Absolutely not. We are not trading Ryan McMahon. I'm like, that's a little odd. I don't know why you would, like, completely turn that down, but wrap it up here, Dalton. Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, the Rockies are an unserious organization. They should be selling, but they're not because their owner is a prideful idiot. Like, they should be seeing what they can get for Elias Diaz. They should be seeing what they should get for McMahon. I guess they chose to give Tovar 7 years and make him, like, the guy they're going to build around. Who knows? They should be trading Chris Bryant for anything that they can get for him. But they're probably not going to. They should be trading Cal Quantrill, who's pitched well, for whatever they can get for him. But the Rockies, like, they can't see past 6 inches in front of them ever. And even when they have tried to sell in the past, they've done it so horrendously poorly that I'm not even sure selling is something they would do well. Like, look at the Arenado trade, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're just a super sloppy organization. So I never know what to make of them, but I'm expecting them to be pretty quiet.
Yeah. No, I would imagine that that is definitely true. Joey Weimer and Jacob Junis are heading back to Cincinnati for Frankie Montas.
Ouch.
A little bit, right?
Like
that's steep.
That's two major leaguers. Like,
yeah, it is.
If I tell you tomorrow that Jacob Junis and Frankie Montas are matching up in a pitching matchup, you're not like running to the sports book to bet the Montas side.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I agree with you 100%.
Like, did Milwaukee even get better in that deal?
I don't know that they did. All right, so everything that we just said about Milwaukee, we take it back. It's gone now.
I was expecting like a low level, like a couple low level prospects. I'm not expecting major league talent going back the other way. Milwaukee has so little major league talent to begin with that like we don't understand how they're doing what they're doing. Like, Jesus.
Boy. Okay. So there you go. Jacob Junis, Joey Weimer in return for Frankie Montas. Take that what you will with Milwaukee. All right. So that does it. Anything left, Dalton Brown? Any big predictions? Anything you want to get off your chest before we get out of here and let the deadline play out for the next half a day?
I do want to admit something to our audience. If you can find the San Diego Padres at 20-1 or better to win the National League West, you should be betting it.
Wow.
And you should be doing it now, because if there's any team that's going to be splashy at the deadline, it's going to be San Diego. And the Dodgers are pretty beat to hell right now. And I think that that's a division that people think of as being like this 12-game lead, and it's not. It's like 5.5, 6. Padres are playing really freaking well, and they're about to host the Dodgers the next couple nights at Petco. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to have Freddie Freeman back. He's dealing with some pretty intense stuff with his kid's health right now.
Yep.
That's bigger than baseball. So I don't know if the Dodgers are going to have Freeman back in the lineup. And I'll tell you what, man, like those lineups we were rolling out there in Houston are not ready for the spotlight. Like it's Ohtani can hit 2 homers in this series again, and I don't know if it's going to do it. Like, it's kind of ugly right now. Matt Waldron has been pitching really well. Dylan Cease has been pitching really well. The Dodgers might be going into San Diego with like a 5.5 game lead that turns into 3.5 in a hurry. That's all I'm going to say. So, and you can get that team that's behind them at 20-1 to win the division. That's worth a flyer. Look, this is not a bet that I'm telling you is going to win, but I think it's got a 10% chance of winning, and you're paying a price that says it's got about a 4% chance of winning.
Yeah. See, there you go. That's why Dalton Brown's king when it comes to sports betting. He informs the listener. That's his job. That's what we do here.
I lose a lot. Trust me.
By the way, before we go, Jazz Chisholm, 2 home runs tonight for the Yankees. Aaron Judge, again, 2 home runs tonight in a 14-4 victory over the Phillies in Philadelphia. I'm telling you, we're back, baby. We're back. Keep buying.
Like you talk about an opportunity to statement series. You put up 14 runs tonight. Garrett Cole on the bump tomorrow. I mean, statement series, man.
We're ready. We're ready. All right, that does it for us. Long show today, but that's what the trade deadline does. It's just that there's so much going on. We gotta make sure we cover all the bases here. Again, I'm hoping that it's a very busy next 16 or so hours. And again, we'll be back next week. This is a Bicoastal Baseball Podcast. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown, the only exclusive baseball podcast on the Grid Network every Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in again here on YouTube. We will see you next week.